Recording in progress.
We're almost there now. Babalo, can you flag the agenda? Yeah. Just go down, let me see. And we have logged in. Okay. Yes,
Are you using a laptop or you are using a small gadget?
I'm using the laptop.
Okay. Can you pull it forward just a little bit?
I can't see myself.
Pull it towards yourself just a little bit.
Okay. Is it fine?
Again. Again,
Better.
just a little bit again.
Let me pin it and see because I haven't pinned it yet. I think it's fine.
Okay. If you're comfortable.
Can you see it on the screen? I've pinned it now.
Okay. No, I don't see my screen because I'm sharing the document.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, ST.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chairperson. Good afternoon, Lubabalo.
Hi, ST.
Good afternoon, Esther. Good afternoon, Mr. Lomo. I think he's online.
ST, I'm ready to press the record button this side.
Yes,
Okay,
I am recording myself. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon.
Chair, a few minutes back, I sent you a message.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, thank you.
Members of the committee, are they here? Can we start? Lubabalo, can you start?
Okay. Just a second, Chairperson. I just want to filter. Last time I checked, there were only 2 members from the committee. So I need just a few seconds to filter and check, okay, how many there are now.
It's still 1 minute before 5 p.m. according to my cell phone, but I could be wrong.
You can start, Chairperson.
Okay. We have, yeah, I saw Honorable Mama Rakhan, Honorable Karim. It's Honorable Molzani here.
Yes, Honorable Molzani is here.
Honorable Ryder.
Honorable Moss is coming through just now.
Yeah, honorable members, colleagues, there's a message there on the chat. please make sure that you use you rename your gadget so that it doesn't reflect as numbers or just a number of your phone, the kind of your phone. Let me start the meeting. I think we have enough members. Start by saying to honorable members of the committee, a very good afternoon. I know that members who come from a hectic meeting, you just log off from the plenary, and some of you are still traveling from Parliament to your respective places. Thank you so much for logging in. I think it's also important to acknowledge the presence of members, chairpersons of the portfolio committees from the provinces and the committee members. We have extended the invitation to the provinces, looking at the type of the meeting that we are having before we go to our provinces to seek mandate. A very good afternoon to you all, honorable members from the provinces. You are welcome. And I want to also encourage you, honorable members, please to participate, because this is our meeting as well. We don't have the stakeholders, whoever is on the platform or media, the support staff or employees of Parliament. You are welcome into this afternoon meeting, and think this meeting is going to be fruitful, but not trying to drag it, because if we drag it and it's an evening meeting, members might be tired, and we might not do just to the process. Do we have any apologies, Lubabalo?
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Good afternoon, honorable members and colleagues. Chairperson, we don't have any apologies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you flight the agenda again? Maybe I should just use mine. Who's leading the delegation from Treasury? How's DJing? Is it usually say?
Yeah, it's the elder. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Lelekai.
Yes, good afternoon, honorable members, chairperson. We will be taking you through these bills. The Division of Revenue bill, Wendy will take us through that with the team. An adjustment appropriation bill, Mampo will lead that, and Eskom debt relief amendment bill, Ravesh will also lead that. So perhaps you are going to take them, all of them at the same time, and then discussions afterwards. Is that how?
Exactly that. We will take them both at a go, and then when we deliberate, we'll be deliberating on both of them. As we present, members will be taking notes. And I'm now handing over to you, National Treasury. You're welcome. I haven't mentioned you because you are the guest of honor in the meeting. Over to you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you so much. Can I please ask one of the National Treasury colleagues to flood the presentation? Al Wong, maybe? And welcome, committee members. What we will be doing is take you through the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill. This is the bill that contains the adjustments, and If I can
While
just
you're
ask some
doing that, there's one participant whose gadget is only reflecting iPad. Can you please rename or indicate who you are so that they can assist us? I think the team can help you if you can just indicate on the chart who you are. Otherwise, we know it's a public meeting, but at least we should know who is in the meeting. Thank you. Over to you, Wendy. Sorry about that.
Thank you. No, no problem. Thank you. I'm still waiting for the presentation to be flighted.
Who is the co-host?
Hi, Wendy.
Hi.
Hi, Wendy. It's Lubabalo here. I'm ready to assist.
Thank you.
But I gave you the co-host rights, but I'm ready to assist you.
Thanks.
Please do.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, what we'll be doing is take you through the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, the changes to the schedules, and then we'll have a presentation containing all the changes to the provincial allocations. Bongani Daka will take you through that. Then changes to local government allocations. Dr. Letsepa Pakis will take you through that. And then changes to gazetted conditional grant framework and allocations. Dr. Letsepa Pakis will take you through that as well. And the last part of the presentation, Letsepa will also take us through. If we can then go to the next slide. And what this explains is the relationship between the Division of Revenue Act and the Division of Revenue Bill, and then also the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill. If you look at the top heading, what first happens is that we go to Parliament and we present the Division of Revenue Bill. Part of it becomes part of the Division of Revenue Act. That is just the clauses to the Act and the schedules to the Act. All the conditional grant frameworks, all the individual allocations to municipalities and the like. That is then legalized through a gazette that's issued by the Minister of Finance as soon as the Division of Revenue Bill is enacted. Then we've got one window generally, and we present it as part of the MTPBS, and that is where we then make changes to the allocations to provinces and local government, as was originally contained in the Division of Revenue Act. How we can make changes, it's legalized and authorized through Section 30/2 of the Public Finance Management Act. And some of them are quite relevant in this instance. If you look at A, it says adjustments required due to significant unforeseeable economic and financial events affecting the fiscal targets set out by the annual budget. And that was also presented as part of the fiscal framework. So some changes will be made to allocations, conditional grants to local government and provinces, specifically to bring us back into the more constrained fiscal framework that we've got available. And then there's unforeseeable and unavoidable expenditure. There's also an allowance for the shifting of funds between and within votes, and then the utilization of savings, and then also the rollover of any unspent funds. So that is the ambit in which we can do a Division of Revenue Amendment Bill. Next slide. And this just explains how it is done. If you look at the top right-hand column, thank you very much, it indicates what we present as part of the actual regional act or bill. It's got a column A that's got the allocations for the current year, the 2023-24 financial year. And then it's also got column B that deals with the forward estimates. The Division of Revenue Amendment Bill does not deal with column B. It just deals with column A. And what it does in column A, it splits it into three. It's got the main allocation, that is the left-hand column. And then it's got an adjustment indicating whether an upward adjustment is made or a downward adjustment is made. And then it indicates the adjusted allocation. So if you look at national, it is reduced by 2.5 billion. If you look at provincial allocations through the adjustments process, it's proposed to be increased by 17.6 billion, and the local government equitable share is reduced by 1.3 billion. And what we will be doing now is just taking you through the provincial changes and the local government changes. So next slide, and over to Bongani Dalka. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairperson, honorable members and colleagues on the platform. I'll be taking you through the changes to the provincial allocations for the in-year changes for 23-24. Resulting from the wage agreement of 2023-24, a decision was made that for the two sectors that are very heavy on personnel, additional funding will be added for provinces. This is health and education to ensure the continuity of services. And the funding was added through the provincial equitable share. And the way the funding was allocated to provinces was based on the head count in each province. So in terms of the addition that was made in year to allow for the provinces to implement this wage agreement, 17.6 billion was added. And this meant that the equitable share rose from 567.5 billion to 585.1 billion. We can move to the next slide. In the next slide, we are talking about the reprioritization and rollovers. And this specifically are talking to the indirect grant that is being administered by the Department of Basic Education, which is the school infrastructure backlog grant. So in terms of this grant, 57 million has been reprioritized. This is to fund the pressures in the compensation of employees and for the upgrade of ICT infrastructure in the Department of Basic Education. Moreover, there was a rollover of 139 million, and this is for the schools in Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, and Limpopo. And this funding that is rolled over is for the SAFE initiative, which deals with inappropriate sanitation, such as the pit latrines, and also the ASIDI programs, which it deals with inappropriate construction material that has been used in school to do away with those. So this money has been rolled over because this funding is already committed for those projects. We can move to the next slide. This slide is showing the reductions that have been made in year. And in terms of the reductions that have been made for the direct conditional grants, 6.2 billion has been reduced, and for the direct conditional grants is 317 million. Just to indicate, this 317 million also include that reprioritization that we spoke about in the previous slide of 57 million. And then just to indicate that only the conditional grants were reduced in year. The provincial equitable share was spared from those reductions that were made in year. Even in terms of the reductions that were implemented, crucial programs such as the school nutrition program was protected from those reductions, and the reduction was effected in other conditional grants such as the the education infrastructure grant, and also the school infrastructure backlog grant took a hit for the reduction that was supposed to be made to the early childhood development grant, such that the reduction implemented there was slightly lower than what it was supposed to be initially. We can move to the next slide, please. Now I'll be handing over to my colleague, Letsepa Pakis, to be taking you through the rest of the presentation. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members of the committee.
Good afternoon, honorable members. The name is Letsepa Pakis, responsible for the local government fiscal framework within the Treasury. Apologies, I don't know what's happening there with the slide.
I want to say that can you sort that out, Lubabalo?
Can I try on my side, Lubabalo?
Okay, okay, because it looks like this one. Okay, I'm gonna give you hosting rights now, Pakis. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Doctor.
Okay.
You saw that?
Okay. Yes. I think I am sorted because I am looking for can you indicate, Lubabalo, when you can see my presentation, please?
Okay, I will.
Okay.
You still can't find it right.
Chairperson, can you still not see it?
Who's speaking? Okay. We can't see anything on the screen yet.
Can't see. Okay. Lubabalo, let's try your one. I will just explain what is happening in that part of the slide, please.
Yeah, we can see the same slide that had a smaller one on top of it. Maybe if you can just talk through them. Yeah.
Okay, Honorable Chair, I'm not sure whether I'm sharing or Lubabalo is sharing, but allow me to begin. So in the first slide, so what we're showing there are the adjustments in here in terms of local government allocations. And the first is a 1.4 billion.
Can you
which,
put them on slide mode, please, Zeba? It's not on slide mode.
As Marijeng, are you to the presenter?
Chairperson, I thought, or maybe it's on my side, because it's not on slide mode on my side, but if it's okay, it's fine.
It's not on the slide mode, on a slide mode, but at least we could see. Yeah, it's on a slide mode now. You can continue, sir.
Honorable Chair,
we have lost the presentation, Letsepa.
Oh my God. Oh, what's happening here? Okay. Now let me give up and hand over to Lubabalo. But Lubabalo, please assist on your side. Since technology is failing me today. Okay, thanks. So the 1 point. Yes, we can see Lubabalo, thanks. It's on slideshow as well, yeah. So the 1.4 billion was allocated outside of the local government equitable share formula. So it was meant to assist us with the pressure that we thought would happen. And that pressure didn't happen as NERSA approved a lower tariff increase, bulk tariff increase for municipalities. Therefore, that money has been taken back to the revenue fund. Then honorable members would have noted the challenges that we've been facing with regards to the disasters. And as a result, 1.2 billion has been added to the municipal disaster recovery grant. And this money is to assist us in terms of the repair of all the infrastructure that was damaged by the floods that had occurred between February and March this year. So there were in the main 4 provinces that were affected. So we are earmarking that money for them to be able to do that. As a result also of the disasters that have taken place, we have depleted the allocation that we originally had for the municipal disaster response grant. So as a result, we are now adding the 373 million into the baseline of that grant in case there are any other disasters that take place between now and the end of the financial year. So that would help us be able to respond. Of course, honorable members will note that there are other grant sources as well that are available to help deal with those issues. And then there are about 3 conversions that have taken place. So here, honorable members, the grant managers managing these grants have picked up some of the issues that the municipalities have been experiencing in terms of delivering on the projects that they were meant to deliver on. And between the grant managers and municipalities, they have agreed that the best course of action is for these funds to be converted into indirect funds so that national could then step in and assist while municipalities are building their capacity. So one such is in Utukela, the 10 million rand for the water supply project. Mfuleni is 20 million for the issues there around the sewer in Everton as well as Sebokeng. And then in terms of the neighborhood development grant, it's with regards to shifting money from the indirect component to the direct component for those municipalities that have been experiencing some challenges in spending there. Next slide, Babalo. Okay, thanks. So here, honorable members, there's reprioritization that has taken place. So the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy has been experiencing some challenges with mines that are ownerless, that need to be rehabilitated. So they have reprioritized funds from the INEP Eskom grant. So this is one of the grants, honorable members, that has in the past shown weaknesses in terms of spending. So there was capacity for the department to redirect those funds towards ensuring that those delicate and ownerless mines are closed. Then there is 309 million that has been reprioritized within the Department of Water and Sanitation's indirect grants. So this is to ensure that the other grant is able to manage the contractual obligations and accruals in several of the municipalities. So this is not the money, honorable members, that flows to the municipalities, but it's the grants that are being managed by the national department there. Next slide, Babalo. So in this slide, honorable members, I think it should be looked at in light of the first three. So this deals with the reductions that have taken place in terms of the fiscal consolidation. This is local government's contribution towards that. As you could see there, honorable members, those amount to 3.4 billion in the current financial year. And of course, we have spared the local government equitable share from these cuts as well, for the reasons that the provincial equitable share was spared. So we know there are pressures there. So as a result of that, those were protected. So in the main, honorable members will note that the MIC, of course, is the biggest grant to local government, and as a result, it would then share the biggest in terms of the cuts. As you can see, the 1.2 billion has been reduced from that grant. Another one maybe of note is the public transport network grant, which has been reduced by 600 million. The honorable members will again note that these two grants have a history of underspending. So the criteria that was used in the main was those grants that have in the past showed weaknesses in terms of spending. But the cuts were severe. So in terms of, although we anticipated that these are unlikely to affect service delivery, but we'll continue to monitor the situation and support municipalities to ensure that the impact can be dealt with. And then, of course, over and above the reprioritization in that I've spoken about in terms of the Eskom grant, there was a further 250 million that was reduced to ensure that local government fully absorbs its cut of this grant. Next slide, Babalo. Next one. So these next two slides, honorable members, they based on Section 54 of the Division of Revenue. Whenever there are changes to the grant frameworks, we must consult with you. So we have made a few changes. So in the local government space, there's just one change that we bring into our attention there. And this change is really to help us manage the funds that have been added into the municipal recovery grant. So here we're earmarking the funds, the 1.2 billion, to ensure that it is used for the purposes that it has been allocated for. So there's been a thorough verification process that takes place, which NDMC has led, and then they have asked us to recommend funding. So we just need to ensure now that those funds are used for the projects that are listed in those verification documents and business plans shared with us by NDMC. Then, honorable members, there are also a few changes in terms of the allocations. So for the EPWP, the provincial leg of it, so in the Western Cape, there's been a rationalization of departments there. So funds that were flowing to the old departments will now be merged and then taken to the one single department that is now responsible for the EPWP project. And also in the project list, there was an error in terms of an allocation amounting to 20 million. So this allocation is also within the indirect component of the original bulk infrastructure grant. Therefore, it's managed by the National Department of Water and Sanitation. So that money was erroneously allocated to Buyers North in the Eastern Cape, and now it has been correctly captured as going to Sunday Rivers Valley, also in the Eastern Cape. So these municipalities are within the same district, and communication has also been made to the two municipalities so that there are no expectations that are not met. Next slide. This slide, honorable members, is just for information's sake to really put out the process. So once this bill has been enacted, that we are then duty bound to then gazette. It also just shows where you would find the specific annexures as well as the details of the changes in the bill itself. So I'm not going to spend much time on that one. And next slide, next one. So this one, honorable members, just gives you a feel of the impact over the MTF. So we've moved out of the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill now to just show you some of the changes that were proposed in the MTPPS. But maybe what is quite important for the honorable members to note is that even though these they're still subject to some changes. Going forward, and the details also are still to be made available to the public. So it's still quite at a high level. So as the funds follow functions, so and also the costs related to those functions, so the national government still gets the lion's share with 48%, and local government gets 9.9%, with provinces being allocated 4.1%. Now, if we look at the debt service costs, we'll say that is quite high. It's twice as high as the allocations to local government, honorable members. So these cuts really could help us. If they could help us in addressing that problem, it does mean that in the years to come, we'll then have more money to redistribute amongst the three spheres of government and be able to service more. So how we've decided to show this information, honorable members, is from what we had presented to you after the main budget, we're showing you the changes that have taken place in those years. So that would be the two outer years of the 2023 MTF. And as a result, we are seeing a net positive change as an addition in terms of the provincial equitable share, where 4.1 billion has been added for the reasons that Bongani indicated, the pressures in those two departments in compensation. Direct conditional grants, again, honorable members, were not spared from the reductions that are aiming to help the country in terms of its fiscal consolidation efforts. So 6.6 billion has been reduced in those 2 years. The local government equitable share could not be protected this time around. There are quite a number of inefficiencies there, honorable members. The money that has been provided for basic services has not been prioritized for those purposes. Therefore, there was scope to reduce the allocation there by 5.9 billion. There's also, in terms of the direct conditional grants.
You want to drink? Whiskey? Drink? One.
I haven't drank. It's not.
There's your
Honorable
offer.
Right, please mute. Can you please mute?
So direct conditional grants for municipalities were also reduced by 2.1 billion in those 2 years, honorable members. Next slide, So this is also to remind the honorable members that there was a specific a condition that was shared with the guidelines that helped to prepare this budget, and that condition was that this budget will not accept major changes that are being proposed to the provincial and local government conditional grants, and we're happy because sector departments really didn't make major changes in terms of the grants. So what I'm going to be sharing with you now are some of the changes that are proposed to improve the functioning of this grant. So, for instance, in terms of the management of the National Health Insurance Direct Grant, the improvement there has seen two components being merged. So those components are the personal services component and the non-personnel services component. So those have been merged into one to help the department manage. So in terms of the aims of those particular components, they remain the same, but now they've been rationalized to ensure that there is no duplication, but also they are easy to manage. So the same has happened in terms of oncology services. So the honorable members would know that some of the oncology services are being funded from the equitable share, and while some are being funded from the National Treasury Services Grant. So what the department has done now is to consolidate the oncology funds and ensure that those that were within the NHI indirect are shifted to the National Treasury Services Grant. And then again here, honorable members, this is to rationalize the services to ensure that there's efficiency with which these oncology services are being provided, and the support that is being provided. Then in terms of the local government conditional grants, there's also parallel to the review. So there are some of the reforms that have been introduced in the system. So we're looking at changes into the general purpose grants that flow from national to the various groups of municipalities. This is really to make better use of the regulatory frameworks. We know the Department of Water and Sanitation has really done quite a lot of work in terms of ensuring that it brings back, the assessments in terms of the green drop, blue drop, and no drop assessment. So just ensuring that when municipalities and grant managers are making allocations, they make use of that information so that we strategically are able to respond to the weaknesses in the system, but also create the right incentives for municipalities, to manage their assets effectively. I think that was the last one, Lubabalo. Can you move? Thank you very much. That's the end of this presentation, honorable members, and thanks. Back to you, Wendy.
Thank you very much. That concludes our presentation on the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill and the projected allocations for the 2024 MTF. Thank you.
Thank you, Asmari Jane. Please manage the presenters.
Yes, Mampo.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Memadi Jane. Chair, I'm next. Good afternoon, honorable members, Chairperson. I'm going to quickly take the committee through the adjustments appropriation bill. And basically here, what we are looking at, Chairperson and honorable members, we are looking at the changes to the adjustments that, or the allocations that were done. I'm just trying to get a proper screen here. Okay, so we're trying to get to present the changes that were done. So the first change that we looked at was the significant and unforeseeable economic and financial event that led to the proposed budget reductions. I'll explain the rationale behind some of these reductions. The second one, we're looking at unforeseeable and unavoidable expenditure, and mainly here we're looking at disaster funding. There hasn't been any expenditure in terms of Section 16, which is basically if there's a national emergency, we haven't transferred fund through Section 16. Money to be appropriated for expenditure already announced by the minister. We have a transaction from to the South African Revenue Services. And then, of course, we're going to look at if there were shifts between funds, but also looking at unspent funds as well as the rollover process. The rest of the slides, Chairperson, are slides that talk about the parliamentary processes, and we added those just as a backup information for the committee. So I'll just go directly to the adjustments then. So, Chairperson and honorable members, as I said earlier, that there were adjustments we had to make regarding the unforeseeable economic and financial events. These budget reductions equal to 21 billion. And basically what we considered here was the programs that have been underspending, the implementation of the cost containment guidelines by departments. So there's basically three core elements of these cost containment guidelines. The first one was restricting non-core recruitment, and the department, the PSA, issued a directive in this regard. The second element was to look at reducing or considerably reducing traveling costs, catering, workshops, and conferences that mainly impacted on goods and services, and then postponement of some of the capital projects that departments hadn't started at the time of the implementation of the cost containment guidelines. Of course, the stress here, honorable members, is that once you postpone capital projects, then there's implementation cost in the future. But we had to take into consideration that it is better to continue and proceed with projects that have already started being implemented and not stopping those, and then focus on postponing the ones that hadn't started. So that was another consideration. And then thirdly, we also looked at surpluses in public entities, especially those public entities with significant surpluses. We then utilize those surpluses and then reduce the transfers to those entities. So, for example, the departments that had to adjust their baselines quite a lot would be the Department of COGTA, 1.5 billion, National Treasury, another 1 billion, basic education, 2 billion, higher education and training, around 3 billion. And this is a classic case or example of utilizing surpluses. NSFAS had a surplus of around 6.2 odd billion. And that surplus was approved for them to retain it. And then the department could then absorb the 3 billion reduction. There was money also in the health sector, social development. And another consideration, Chairperson and honorable members, is that we had allocated funding provisionally, and those funds that we allocated provisionally, we then use those to also look at the reduction. So, for example, in social development, what makes that 2.1 billion is the reduction in the number of beneficiaries from different categories of grants, but also there was a provisional allocation to SASSA for administrative costs, but they've realized surpluses and that provisional allocation was no longer required for the entity. Then human settlements also saw a reduction of around 3.2 billion, and then transport was a reduction of 1.3 billion. And for human settlements and transport, these are the grants that the IGR team discussed earlier. But also, Chairperson and honorable members, we had to make other adjustments due to the wage bill agreement. So the 2023 wage bill agreement for specific department were absorbed by those departments. So the departments that were not personnel heavy, they managed to absorb the cost of the wage bill, but there were 3 entities or 3 departments at the national level where they couldn't absorb the wage bill pressures, and those were votes 22 correctional services, 23 defense, and 28 police, where we're proposing to Parliament an additional of 4 billion for police, 1.2 for defense, and 800 million. And for provinces, the proposal is 10.753 billion, and this would be for provincial education departments, and then another 6.805 billion to the provisional health department. Then, Chairperson, for unforeseeable and unavoidable expenditure, the proposal is to allocate money for COGTA and around 1.6 billion, and mainly this is to deal or capacitate municipal disaster recovery grant, as well as the rehabilitation of municipal infrastructure that has been damaged, or in different provinces that has been damaged through the disasters that took place, and another 372 million for the municipal disaster response grant in case there's in case there's other disasters, that grant will be required as an immediate response. We also had to look at the impact the exchange rate had on department, and one such department was international relations and cooperation, and this was because of the exchange rate depreciation and the fact that most of their employees are in different parts of the world. Therefore, they required, every time when there's fluctuation, they require their salaries or payments to be adjusted. And as a result, we had to take into consideration that when we were looking at the applications. The South African Revenue Services, the proposed allocation is 1 billion. This was provisionally allocated at the time of the budget and announced by the minister. So this is just an operational transaction to then allocate the money for SARS that has already been allocated, and this will be used to capacitate the South African Revenue Services so that they can improve on tax collections. Then there were other applications, honorable members, on rollovers. There were 3 departments where we looked at the rollovers and they qualify for the rollovers. The first one is Home Affairs. So basically when this money was allocated in last year, the department couldn't transfer the money within the financial year. So they're asking for a rollover. This is for the represented political party fund. So this is not new money. This is the money that was allocated last year. But now because the department couldn't really allocate it at the right time, it became an underspending from last year. But for this year, we're just reallocating it, and this will be used for the general, national, and provincial elections in 2024. There's another rollover proposal, the basic education, and this is mainly on the accelerated school infrastructure delivery initiatives and the sanitation appropriated for the education initiative. So this is just basic education's proposed rollovers. And then the last one would be Department of Employment and Labor, and basically here it's for them to fix their existing buildings. This department, just to mention, this department they have qualified and they meet the criteria for the rollovers. The self-financing expenditure, chairpersons and honorable members, basically here, the biggest departments that usually apply for this each year would be Home Affairs, and this is basically the expenditure that they incur on official documents, ID, passport, and money goes into the National Revenue Fund, and we allocate it back to them so that they can deal with the expenditure. So currently, Department of Home Affairs will be overspending in that category because they're not getting the revenue. But once Parliament approves this funding, if it's approved, then that will deal with the overspending. And another one that is constantly in here would be the Department of Defense, where basically these are reimbursements from the United Nations for their participation in the DRC. There's other small departments where some of them are implementing improvements in the system that would be trade, industry, and competition. And because they've realized the savings, we tend to reallocate it back to departments so that they can use the money for other purposes, especially if they can justify the purpose of this and it's not a long-term commitment. If they're going to fix or upgrade their infrastructure, we usually encourage departments to identify savings and then use that money to deal with their short-term projects. So these are just some of the departments that realize those savings. And then there's been declared unspent fund, the local government equitable share, due to the lower than projected bulk electricity costs. IGR team spoke about that. The National Treasury payment for financial assets, that's basically the money for the land bank that the creditors or the lenders requested, and it was financed through a direct charge, but that amount has already been allocated. So this underspending is, this unspent fund basically is to move the money from the budget of the National Treasury because it was allocated there, and then offset the payment that was done through the direct charge. And then forestry, fisheries, and environmental affairs, basically these are just agencies and outsourced services that were due to cancel contracts that were cancelled. So chairperson and honorable members, basically in total we're looking at these adjustments, but I think the critical one would be the proposed budget reductions that are new in the system, and the taking into consideration some of the mechanisms that we put in place to assist the departments to achieve these reductions while trying to protect service delivery. But of course, by postponing some of the infrastructure projects, there might be an implication of service delivery in the future. And then quickly, just looking at the environments, there are environments that the accounting officers must approve and they can implement, and the criteria there is that they must not exceed 8% of the amount that is appropriated, and these must not be specifically and exclusively appropriated. It shouldn't be amounts transferred to other entities, and also amounts for capital assets. If the department wants to move funds where they're not authorized to do so, they can either come to the National Treasury, but the National Treasury, of course, can only approve increasing of compensation of employees and transfers and subsidies, looking at new transfers and subsidies to other institutions, and also looking at the earmark allocations that are there. But every other environment then is only approved by Parliament. So this is small, but basically, Chairperson and honorable members, these are just the summary of the environments that are there in the Adjustments Appropriation Bill. The bill itself looks at all the environments, and it's clearly marked which ones were approved by the accounting officers, which ones were approved by National Treasury, and which ones must be approved by Parliament. But here what we're trying to show is how we assisted departments from moving some of the funds from goods and services to compensation of employees to deal with the wage pressure, despite us allocating funds, of course, to those three departments who are compensation heavy. Chairperson, that's the presentation on the adjusted appropriation bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Modise.
Rajab, your turn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Modise. Thank you, Mayor Malajeng, and good evening to the Honorable Chair and Honorable members. My name is Ravesh. I'll be taking you through the Eskom Debt Relief Bill. Let me just try and project the presentation. If you allow me to, I'll just switch off my camera to allow and save for bandwidth. Here we go. Just checking if that's on. Perfect. Thank you, Honorable Chair and Honorable members. So basically, I'm going to be presenting on the Eskom Debt Relief Amendment Bill, as I've mentioned. I think what's important to outline is that basically we are, as Treasury, introducing this amendment bill due to the fact that we are now introducing interest on the debt relief package that was announced earlier in the year, and through the debt relief act as well. So the reason for this is to better reflect the arrangement of this debt relief package, and hence the interest that will be charged will also be market related. I think what's important to understand, honorable members, is that the interest rate, or the interest that we will be imposing, we needed to just understand and take into account the balance that needs to be struck between ensuring that while we charge interest, that it doesn't negatively impact Eskom's cash flow, but at the same time also ensuring that we reflect a fair market value. So I think, as I've mentioned, this is different from what we initially, envisaged in the Eskom Debt Relief Act, where it was an interest-free loan. And here, what we are, I think just to get into the actual mechanics, is that the interest will be dispersed on the amounts, even if Eskom complies with the conditions, and it will be then imposed post the approval or the enactment of the Debt Relief Amendment Bill. So it won't apply retrospectively to the 36 billion that's already been dispersed. So I think that's important. And then what's also important to highlight to the honourable committee and members is that where Eskom fails to comply to the conditions, then the interest that will be charged will be a higher amount, so there'll be a penalty interest charged. The subordinated nature of the loan remains the same. So here, what we mean by subordinated loan is that in the unlikely event that Eskom will default on all its loans, then there will be a priority of the repayment of loans. So all its other loans, like foreign loans and loans to the lenders, will be paid first before the loan that's been provided to Eskom will then be repaid. I think that's quite important. And lastly, as well, just to highlight the fact that before we went ahead with the approach of imposing interest, we have engaged quite regularly and robustly with Eskom, and they have agreed on the approach. So I think that's also quite significant and important to highlight to the committee that it's not just a unilateral approach that we've adopted, that we've also consulted Eskom, and that they have agreed to the approach as well. Honorable Chair, just moving to the next slide, which is basically just highlights the key features of the Debt Relief Amendment Bill. I think there's 2 points that we want to point out here as well, is that the bill proposes that that we amend Section 2 of the Eskom Debt Relief Act by including, firstly, that the Eskom will pay interest on the amounts to be advanced as a loan and at the rate to be determined by the Minister. I think what's also significant to highlight to the Honourable Committee and members is that the rate will be announced in the updated explanatory note. So post the enactment of the bill, we'll then update the existing explanatory note that's on our website to just give more more color and more flavor in terms of the actual rate that will be charged and any other information that will be important for investors and also the public. And I think the other point that we also wanted to highlight is that there'll be another addition of to the existing Debt Relief Act, is where, for example, if we have a situation where where Eskom also then fails to comply to the condition, then the minister may, I think it's important to highlight, may, after also consultation with Eskom, reduce amounts that have been proposed in the Eskom Debt Relief Act. So the minister, for example, going forward in this fiscal year, while there's been an amount of 36 billion that's been dispersed, there's a further 42 billion that will be dispersed. But in the event that Eskom does not meet the condition, after 2 consecutive attempts, so every quarter, if we look at the first quarter, if they haven't met the conditions, then they'll be allowed to meet it in the next quarter. If not, then what would happen is that the minister may, after consultation with Eskom, then reduce future amounts from the actual debt relief package. But I think what's also significant and important to highlight to the committee members is that this amount may not exceed 5% of the total amount for the applicable financial year. So, for example, in this fiscal year, as I've mentioned, 23-24, there's 78 billion. So 5% of that is around 3.6 billion. So the minister may not exceed that 5% of the total amount to be reduced, and it doesn't mean that the minister then may then reduce the amount up to a maximum. But obviously there will be there will be that consultation with Eskom to ensure that it doesn't negatively impact Eskom, because we don't want to have a situation where we charge interest and then we reduce the amounts going forward, but then it negatively impacts Eskom and it won't be able to repay debt. So I think that's I think that's quite important to highlight to the committee as well. And then lastly, we will then report to the Parliament, to the relevant parliamentary committees in terms of the approach, and just updating in terms of where we are in terms of the debt relief package, but also the interest charged, and also whether there were any amounts that were reduced from the debt relief package. Then if we move on to the next slide basically just highlights the approved conditions for the debt relief package, which has been formally shared with Eskom and the shareholder department, and now we are formally tabling it with this committee as well. I think what's important to highlight is that that the conditions stays relatively the same. I think what we basically want to flag is in the next slide, where basically we've included two more conditions, basically around just ensuring that Eskom, which is bullet point 2, is that they must continue to ensure that they prioritize the implementation of the unbundling process, and also obtaining lender consent to fully implement unbundling. And then lastly, bullet point 4, which basically is that any transaction taken or that's undertaken in terms of section 54 of the PFMA must be subject to joint approval by the Minister of Public Enterprise and Minister of Finance. So just in terms of this section, it's basically any significant transactions in terms of acquisitions or disposals or joint ventures, where in terms of the PFMA, it's the Minister of Public Enterprises that approves, and the Minister of Finance that notes, but we are including a condition where there will be a joint approval, so we have a more closer understanding and hold of some of these transactions that Eskom may undertake going forward. And then, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members, I think the last slide basically just outlines how we will be monitoring the compliance with the conditions, in terms of how Eskom will comply to them. So we have established a quarterly monitoring task team, that comprises of the necessary officials from the departments, including the shareholder department and Eskom. And we will then, report or then monitor compliance to the conditions. In fact, we've received the first quarterly report, so we are in the process of reviewing those conditions, and then we will, obviously then report back to Parliament in terms of compliance. And I think just to highlight exactly how the conversion of the loan to equity will work is that if Eskom complies to the conditions, then the loan, for example, for the quarter will be converted to equity. So it's in Eskom's best interest to ensure that they meet the conditions, because if this loan is not converted to equity, then they will not be a going concern. And I think it's important that we just highlight that as well. So I think, as I mentioned in the previous slide, if they don't meet conditions for a certain quarter, they will then it'll mean that they will be given a second chance at the next quarter to meet the conditions, and if not, then obviously we'll need to then look at whether we also then convert or then may result in the balance of that loan for that particular quarter being carried over until 31st March 2026, where the loan will then be converted into a liability payable in cash and at market terms. So we've included a lot of measures to ensure that Eskom does comply with the conditions, and I think it's quite important for them to ensure that they meet these conditions to ensure the conversion of the loan into equity. And I think, as we've mentioned in the previous few slides, if they don't meet the conditions, firstly, they could be the imposing of, the penalty interest, and then the Minister, Finance may then reduce future amounts in that fiscal year. And obviously then what doesn't work in Eskom's favor is that if they continuously don't meet the conditions for 2 consecutive quarters, then that loan will be carried over until 31st of March 2026, which will then mean that it'll have to be repaid at market-related rates. So I think it's in Eskom's best interest to ensure that they meet the conditions, because if any part of the loan is not converted into equity, it means that they will not that they will have going concern issues, and it's in their best interest to ensure that they remain solvent and liquid to ensure that they can be able to carry on as a business. So I think, Chair, that's the last slide from my side. So I will hand over back to the Honourable Chair and Honourable Members for questions. Thank you.
Are we done, Team Treasury?
So we are done, Honourable Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Can I now give this opportunity to members to indicate by raising their hand if they want to engage in the presentation? But for those who have a challenge in as far as using their icons, you can call for my attention. But for now, let's start by identifying Estelle, Lubabalo, and the other colleagues. Can you help me on the group or directly to me?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, we have Honorable Ryder, Honorable Dudoit, and Honorable Molezane for now. Thank you.
Okay. Honorable Ryder, can you kickstart the engagements?
Sure. Thank you very much, Chair. Unfortunately, my laptop chose this evening to run an update, so I'm using my phone. But I'm sure you will excuse me. I don't have the normal background behind me, but if I hold the phone up to the window, you'll see the NCRP behind me. So I got the real thing instead of the picture. Yeah, thanks for the presentations. I think that the questions I'm going to ask are well known from what I've said in the last few meetings and certainly in the past where my focus has been. So I'm a bit surprised some of it wasn't covered. So let's talk about first of all the reductions that we saw on the very first slide, and it looks to me like there's been a disproportionate reduction in the appropriation to local government in the adjusting of what's happened. So if you look at the amount of money appropriated away from national and from local government, the amount that has been dropped from national is kind of a little over double what's taken away from local government. But you know, as a proportion of what they originally were given, it's substantial. So what we're doing is we're going back to that situation that we've been talking about for a couple of years, where the proportion of the national fiscus of the National Revenue Fund that is being appropriated to local government is 9% or below. And we did look like we were going to improve on that. It looks like we are now reneging on that undertaking, or you are reneging on the undertaking to improve that 9% allocation. And perhaps you can just unpack that a little bit and then talk to me about the medium-term impact that this is going to have. Because, of course, you know, a reduction in a budget item tends to have a subsequent consequential reduction over the medium term. So please talk to me about that. Yeah, Dr. Mampo presented that slide, and she took a little bit of time in dealing with the reappropriation of monies and when it's allowed, and the unforeseeable nature of issues that you know that justify reappropriations and changes to appropriations. But now a lot of the changes that we're seeing now were not at all unexpected. I mean, the Treasury was warned by myself, by many of my colleagues in discussions that the wage bill was going to have a material impact on the budgeting, and ignored those in putting together the budget from February, or that was presented in February of this year. And now is coming with an adjustment appropriation to try and fix their mistake. But it's not unforeseen, so I'm not sure that a lot of it qualifies. And you know, this point was made in the MTBPS discussions with Dr. Sachs. Professor Sachs, I never remember which title is his, but he is a lot more learned than I am. And he indicated that he felt like this is not an adjustment, this is actually an entirely new budget because of the material changes that are being made. And I really feel that it doesn't feel like an adjustment budget. So how do we justify the fact we're moving these monies about as unforeseeable when the warnings were stark and clear? Chair, and then I want to raise a bit of an alarm about some of the big shifts away from departments. Now, there are departments that it's been said that they were able to meet some of the funding requirements that came about as a result of the increased wage responsibility placed on departments, and it's quite alarming, Chair, that they're able to meet that increased bill within the budget that they've got. Because what this means is that they are not fulfilling promises that they made initially. When we appropriated money to these departments initially, and we said, go out there and they present their programs to us, certainly more to the National Assembly than to the National Council of Provinces. But in the BRRR process in the National Assembly, they present their year plans and they lay out exactly what they're planning on doing. Now they haven't done that. So in many instances, as you say, they're able to meet the increased wage demand. That means that they haven't been doing the service delivery that they were supposed to do. In other instances, you see there were some departments that had big shifts away from them. That means they're not doing what they promised that they were going to be doing. And it's quite scary to see where that comes from, because it's from cooperative governance, it's from social development, it's from education, it's from human settlements. So we're taking money away from departments who have not been delivering what they've promised. And these are key departments, key service delivery departments. And we're having to reduce budget so that we're going to spread the money around for to meet the wage bill. But it really is a big concern. And I wonder how many departments will not be able to meet their targets that they've set for themselves. With these massive reductions or massive realignments that they have. And Chair, that's quite worrying for our budget process. And I think that it emphasizes the need for what I've been calling for some time, zero-based budgeting, and which in fact was promised, firstly by Minister Mboweni, as a pilot project of 2 departments. And this was re-emphasized by Mr. Gorongwana when he took the reins. Yet we haven't seen any mention of zero-based budgeting. We haven't seen any comments about pilot projects. And in fact, we're actually not seeing any outcomes. But the fact that a department is able to take massive chunks of its budget that it's been given and just easily absorb the increased wage demand, or easily give up a big chunk of what they were initially appropriated to help provinces to absorb their way, to go some way towards absorbing the increased wage demand. This is quite scary, Chair, and it indicates that departments may not be spending money in ways that benefit South Africans as they should. Chair, yeah, I think that I'm going to leave it at for now. I do think that I need to re-emphasize, certainly from our point of view, there's a clear crowding out of service delivery in order to meet the wage bill. And I really felt that there were attempts to subvert overtly stating this, but I think that if one looks at the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, and if you look, and I think it's page 47 or 48, I don't have it in front of me right now, Chair, but where it talks about money being taken away from the infrastructure backlog at schools, money being taken away from that in order to meet the wage bill. I think that is the biggest, most shocking, an unfortunate example of exactly that. Wage bill crowding out real service delivery. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Ryder. Honorable Date, you're next.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and thank you for National Treasury for the presentation. Honorable Chair, I've been partially covered by Honorable Ryder. I do want to add to what he said with regards to the wage bill, specifically on education. If we refer back to the previous budget as well as the previous MTBS, it's evident that the early childhood development in that stage also received a huge lump sum, but the majority of those funds were used to fund wages and expenses that were incurred over the COVID period. And it's troublesome. And if National Treasury can maybe give us advice as to how this will be addressed in future to allow for funds specifically on the wage bill to be availed and not for funds that's supposed to fund the children, early childhood development, basic education, to go towards the wage bill. And then, Chair, the 300 million on the political party fund, I want to know if there's allocation towards independent candidates as well, or is this only for existing political parties as it was presented in the documentation that this is actually an amount that came from the initial budget? If you could just get more clarity on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Tutoit. And next is Honorable Mletsani.
Thank you, Chairperson. If you may allow me to switch off my video, where I am, the reception is not good.
Granted.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make a comment on the deductions that have been made to different departments, that it is going to have a negative impact to those departments that have experienced the deductions. Is going to have a negative impact again on service delivery. One of the presenters said, even though they have implemented the deductions, but they will be monitoring. Really, do our people have to suffer first? Then when we see them suffering, then more money will be availed so that service delivery will be given to our people. Secondly, Chairperson, I just want to find out from the Treasury, when are they going to change this distribution model? The local government is the one that needs more money, and they are also dealing direct with the community. While they only get 9.9%, which is too little for them to cope with the demands of the service delivery. This model, Chairperson, should be changed so that it is able to provide local government with a better percentage to be able to provide a better service delivery to the community. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Ntate Mletsani. Any other hand? None.
Yeah, I think the cricket players have given many of our members heart attacks, and they're no longer able to speak.
It should have started with you.
Honorable Chair, Ndabeni Eastern Cape.
Who's that?
Ndabeni Eastern Cape, my hand is up, Honorable
Okay,
Chair.
Ndabeni, yes, you can have platform.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and good evening to you. Good evening to the honorable members on the platform and all the officials from Treasury and the officials from other departments, including our officials from the NCOP. Honorable Chair, I just have few questions to ask. Let me first join honorable members in appreciating the presentation made by the National Treasurer. But just to have few questions. One on the issue of the Eskom debt. When they say that the part of the debt must be converted into equity, in literal sense, what does that mean? That's a question. What does that mean to the equity structure of Eskom as is? Are we selling some of the equity percentage to the lenders? What exactly are we doing with Eskom? That's the first question I have on the Eskom debt. The second issue is that because that debt arises from the fact that one is that some departments of government, they owe municipalities, invariable municipalities, they owe Eskom. Have we done the analysis of what gives rise to this continued debt of Eskom? Because from where I'm sitting, Honorable Chair, this debt of Eskom does not seem to be going down. Have we made that analysis? What gives rise to this debt? The second question is the fiscal consolidation. What gives rise to this continued national debt? As treasurer, do we have a plan other than servicing the debt with the revenue collection we have? Do we have a plan to deal with the debt as it is? I'm raising this, Honorable Chair, because I can make a comment on this one within the context of a question. That if you track the genesis of South Africa post-apartheid, when they took over power from 1994, South Africa has a huge debt arising from the apartheid history. And there was a time when we were able to deal with that debt as a country. I remember the last budget presented by the former minister, Trevor Manuel, I think in 2008. It projected, in fact, it presented a surplus of government of about 200 and something billion. I just can't recollect the correct figures. From there, we've since accumulated more debt as a country. Do we have a plan to deal with the national debt of the country other than servicing the interest on the debt? Because for me, Honorable Chair, we seem to be committing generations and generations to come on the continued borrowing of a debt that seems to be skyrocketing every year in, out. Do we have that? My third question, Honorable Chair, is I think I'm partly covered, but I really want to take this point further to say, what do we want to do with the municipalities? Rural municipalities are the infrastructure, basic infrastructure, is collapsing, Honorable Chair. Whether I talk about roads, whether I talk about this basic infrastructure of people, and when you continue to reduce the small money that we appropriate to them, yes, I know that there have been argument about capacity, but can we really say that we want these municipalities to be service delivery institutions when we continue to reduce the little that we give to them? What do we want to do with them? For me, Honorable Chair, and I want to make a comment within this point, to say that if we don't safeguard the capacity of local government to deliver on its constitutional mandate, once they collapse in terms of service delivery, that will be the beginning of the collapse of a democratic project. And for me, Treasurer does not seem to be attending to this point in terms of the division of revenue, to safeguard the interest of the municipalities to be able to deliver on their basic services as mandated by the Constitution. People are not protesting in national space. They protest in municipalities. And when they protest, more often than not, they vandalize the existing infrastructure because of the frustration. Have we analyzed the frustration on the ground of the people about the poor service delivery. And when you continue to take money from the municipalities, what really are we saying about them? My last comment, Honorable Chair, is on the reduction of the budget. What informs that? I understand they'll talk about budget pressures, but have we looked at the implications of what has been planned already in the financial year, in terms of projects that will have to be delayed or stopped because of the reduction and redirection of some of the monies appropriated to different departments? I'm just general on this particular question, Honorable Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Ndabeni. I think you were the last person to speak on the matter, the presentations. If there's no other hand, then I'll come with my chance or my opportunity to have a bite on the three presentations. And the first point of departure will be on the revenue, Division of Revenue Amendment Bill. The issue that everybody is raising, and I think as a team treasurer, when you were preparing these presentations or getting yourself ready for this, you anticipated these questions, because it's a question that as a committee we have been complaining about, and also municipalities, SALGA also raised it, and Honorable Ndabeni, just like other provinces and us who have been raising it, this equitable share story. Because according to me, the local government equitable share is already small. Actually, smaller than the allocated earmark for the other spheres of government. So one will want to check with Treasury that what really informed the decision. Adding to what Honorable Ndabeni has raised, because local government is at the cold phase. If we say a national department of so and so is doing service delivery, there's no national community. They are doing it at the local government sphere. So what will this bring? Will this not have a negative impact in terms of service delivery? In as far as local government is concerned? I need your assistant, Team Treasurer. Whether this is not also going to do the reversal of the good work that has been done already in trying to address the shortfall in local government funding in the past years. So we seem to be reversing, but maybe there's a justifiable reason, which I see it as a problem. If it's not reasonable for me as a member of parliament representing the constituency, then the constituency that I'm representing is also going to experience the same problem. They might not, or they will not have that understanding. So this is the opportunity that we get clarified. And it's something that we've been raising consistently since 2019, since we came in. In relation to, or with regard to the conditional grant reduction, we are as a committee, I think I'm not misrepresenting the committee. We are concerned about the impact of these reductions on service delivery. So the same question, I think, is have we diagnosed or tried to make a research, or is our decision for this reduction informed by a research in a futuristic way to foresee the impact that is going to have if we do this reduction? Have we done any assessment as a team treasurer on the adjustment appropriation? I would like to know the progress in the process of restructuring social services grants, as this was announced in the previous budget speeches. Just to give one that information or empowerment to know as to how far are we in terms of this restructuring of social service grant. And my last comment will be on the 300. I think other members have spoken about it, and it was also raised in our joint committees. The 300 million for political parties. Honorable Date also spoke to it by Home Affairs. Is this not going to give the department a nightmare? Because from what Honorable Debate is understanding, that's my understanding, because the fund, it says political parties, it says political party funding. So we have an amended act that speaks about individuals who are now allowed to contest. So how are they going to access this funding? So one will want to know also if there are interventions coming from government in terms of addressing this unforeseen circumstances, because I think when the decision or the discussions of having this political party funding to be increased, it was we never had the discussions of allowing individuals to contest for elections. It was only political parties. Hence, the budget or the allocation speaks to political parties. So can you assist us in terms of understanding this? Any other person? No one? I'll hand over to Team Treasurer. Team Treasury. House Manager Dr. Modise.
Okay.
Wendy. Who?
There's one extra hand from
okay.
Honorable Shamin Thakur from KZN.
Okay. Honorable Dlamini, you're welcome. You can speak.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, for giving me this opportunity. I just wanted clarity. This morning we heard in KZN that the Department of Education would be saying like a 3.6 billion shortfall for the wage bill agreement. But from this presentation, it looks like that won't be so, because we were told that they would be approaching National Treasury for that shortfall. So I just wanted clarity on that, whether that would be, that is for all the provinces, so that we don't have the shortfall. The other is, of course, on, I agree with, some of the members about the represented political parties fund, but I have a different understanding that this is for those parties that are already elected. And I just wanted to know that the quotas for political parties, will that be given in November, in the November adjustments? The other is there was a slide that was on DTI, and I think maybe this is, I'm a provincial MP, maybe I don't have too much of sort of interaction with what's going on at national, but I did see there was a project, it was called Terrasano, and I thought that there was very little detail given on it with the explanation and maybe some expansion on that. And lastly, on the Eskom Debt Relief Amendment Bill, and this is, quite hotly debated in our local councils. From the way the two-page explanation was given, I agree with some members that it does sound a bit tricky, but my take on it is that it looks like a carrot and stick approach for Eskom by National Treasury, and the fear is very real in the local communities about this interest that's going to be charged, and they are unsure whether it would cascade to interest for late payers at the ratepayers level. So if Eskom, for example, does not retrieve this monies, then this bill, to me, looks like an exit strategy for Eskom, because maybe National, would be expecting Eskom to go bankrupt. And I think that those are the real fears about this Eskom Debt Relief Amendment Bill. Maybe National Treasury can allay some of those fears, by giving us a better explanation as to why this bill came into effect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Another hand? Is there another hand? None. I think the last thing that I want to throw in is about the party funding. Is about the conditional grants. I mean the conditions in relation to the Eskom relief grant. There's a slide in your presentation where you are speaking about monitoring of Eskom in as far as the compliance with the conditional grant. So what I want to know, to who is this slide or this sentence or this information directed to? Who is going to do the monitoring? I think, is it a National Treasury? And what about us as the oversight body in Parliament? I think we have a responsibility because we approve this, we understand the conditions, but how do we access those conditions, and how do you oversight on something that you don't have? If there's somewhere where we can access them, we can be happy to get that information. Thank you. Over to you, Team Treasury.
Thank you, honorable members, for these very difficult questions. And during a very painful time that we are going through. The one thing that members must know is that we don't take delight in having to reduce the department's budget, precisely because we understand that it's gonna be an issue that affects everyone. We don't take delight in that. And it's a very difficult choices that had to be made. As Honorable Ndabeni, I think, indicated that we are having a rise in our debt. And if you remember, honorable members, from around 2008-7, our debt stock was around 600 billion. It has been rising because of the need to meet the needs of the country at all levels. And we are now talking about 5 to 6 billion over the MTF, 6 trillion. And that is huge. And what makes it a problem is that it's not necessarily that we are actually investing. It is consumption. So which means the generational inequity is a huge issue. And it's very, very unfair. And it becomes very irresponsible to continue just to pile up debt for consumption. So that is a big issue. So what we didn't anticipate is that we are going to have the current level of revenue collection. That is way below what was projected. So before the revenue collection hits the level in which it hits that it's giving us the under collection, we're already going to borrow around 300 to 400 billion. Now we have got to increase the borrowing. So now there has to be a limit in which we can be able to do that. Hence, the responsible thing to do when you don't have money is that you want to align your expenditure with how much you can spend reasonably. So I think that is essentially what informs our reduction, our having to reduce the budgets. And that the issue is we are trying to be much strategic in doing so. And how? So when you look at local government, that we have reduced the conditional grants in the current year by 3.4 billion. And we have added around 1.5 billion to take account of the disaster. But when you look at what we are sitting with the requests of around 6.8 to 7 billion for rollover. That says that in the last year, local government underspent by almost close to 10 billion in terms of the capex. And much of that is conditional grants. So, and we have approved around 3.5 billion of those rollovers that they are requesting. That is the amount that they could justify that this amount, the projects are ongoing, we can spend. So the amount that actually has been cut, in reality, it almost aligns with the spending capacity if you have to look at it that way. So in that sense, one doesn't expect that major impact. And in fact, given the waste that we know is happening, the inefficiencies that we know is happening in the system, what one hopes is that with this crisis that we have in terms of the fiscal constraint, that it can actually lift up the level of efficiency in which we are managing our resources as government. So that even the infrastructure that we spend, which at the moment is not even giving us positive multiplier, that it can actually give us the investment that have got a value in terms of protecting the assets that generate the services that the country needs. So that is the first point that I want to make. So with regard to local government, in terms of the share, so the share of local government is not changing that much. And the truth is, we cannot be able to increase the share of local government when there is no revenue that is coming. So we started maybe 15 years ago with around 3% as the share of local government. As the economy performs, we have more revenue, then we are able to increase local government at a much faster rate than the other departments. So one cannot argue and say local government is underfunded and that there is any department in the national and provinces that is well funded. I think the evidence that we have now, when you have been saying to us, what will this reductions impact would have, because the money would still perhaps not be sufficient for some of the things like the wage bill. What will the impact? So that means for us at this point where we are in terms of the performance of the economy, for us to be able to say we are lifting the share of local government, it means that we have to cut somewhere. We have to cut the police, we have to cut education, we have to cut somewhere. So because there is no additional money that we can take somewhere. So now, and also if we come to the conclusion that the share that the local government, the powers that local government have in terms of revenue raising powers, that those powers local government cannot exercise, and therefore they must be funded from national. So it means somebody has got to pay. So it means we have got to tax more so that then we can pay for those consumers that are consuming, because the essence of the local government is that those that can pay must pay. And those that we expect to pay, business and the household that can pay, are the same people that we're actually taxing. So now, if we are still continuing to try to optimize the tax in terms of the national tax, we know that there's a lot of the tax inefficiencies that local government is undertaking. So we can do better. So that is why we have introduced this debt relief program that is being undertaken through the support that is given to Eskom. So part of what that relief program is supposed to do, it is supposed to support us in actually implementing the revenue enhancement program for municipalities. And what we are finding is that just the practices in the revenue, the tariff setting, billing, collection of that bill, that actually that which they can collect, it's not. That even the consumers, the large ones, they actually are not paying what they should be paying. The meters are not working, or they are not properly working. So now what we are looking at is that as part of that relief program, that is actually saying a municipality, you are hugely indebted to Eskom, and some of them will never be able to pay themselves in my lifetime. So now we are going to relieve you of this debt progressively as you improve your performance in revenue collection, and also pay the current account for Eskom. And then we are looking at those aspects of revenue collection that we are supporting them to be able to do so. So we have got a program that is accompanying that. So if there is a political will and administrative will to be able to do so, and capability that receive the support, because part of our challenge is we offer a lot of support, but that support, the absorptive capacity for that support is a problem. So that is why we fail, because of the dysfunctionalities that are happening at political level and administrative level. So that is a problem that I don't think I have got capacity to actually address. It has to be addressed at a particular level. But from where we sit, we have got a solid program that if there is a willing administrative, administration in the municipality, that with this program, that also says you can also then extend this support to the consumers and reduce their debt, but putting something like smart meters. So we are looking at how we can actually resource that, so that then they can actually begin to address the issues of the leakages for the people that are able to pay, so that they're able to pay, including government departments, that they're able to pay. So that is what we are trying to do. But this effort are always hindered and rendered fruitless when the administration is dysfunctional at the political level. That is a major challenge that we are actually faced with. And that challenge seems to be very difficult, that nobody is able to actually overcome that challenge. And I think the challenge everybody knows. And we need help to be able to ensure that challenge. And if it's not addressed, indeed, whatever help that we provide will not be able to save local government, Honorable Ndabeni. It will not be able to save it. And I think the salvation of local government is really sitting with local government itself and all the political system that surrounds local government. So on what informed the decision to, yes, so I've done that. So in terms of the shortfall, on the wage bill. I'm not sure I heard the question very well, Honorable Shamin, but the provinces have been supported with additional allocation so that they can be able to finance the wage increase for health and education in particular. And that is about 80% that we are giving them in terms of that. So it means that for the rest of the departments, they have to be able to absorb that. So, and that is happening across the provinces, as well as it's happening across the national departments. So Wendy, maybe you may want to add, I don't know if Jan is on the platform to add on anything that I may have missed on our part.
Thank you. Thank you, Marijeng. Maybe just on the KZN question, I could maybe add a little bit, because it was indicated that the Department of Education, they've got a shortfall of 3.7 billion. The addition made to KZN amounts to 3.9 billion, which is about 80% of what is catered for in both education and health. And it's based on the head count, the expenditure per the head count per the province, that is to deal with the in-year pressures. But there are further complications with regard to KZN. We do know that there's some underfunding, which is not necessarily something that the national department must deal with, but the provincial Department of Education needs to deal with. So it's definitely the allocation is for all provinces, including KZN. And then there's also a question about the wage bill and what can we do in the short term versus the longer term. In the short term, unfortunately, there's not much you can do in terms of dealing with additional personnel expenditure pressures, but to do what we've done, and that is to deal with it through reprioritization. But we all know that there are various personnel-related issues that need to be dealt with, and it applies both to national departments as well as provinces, that there's a need to restructure government, to be streamlined. In certain provinces, there's definitely bloated personnel structures that need to be dealt with, and the like. So in the longer term, and medium and longer term, there are more measures available to deal with these pressures. But unfortunately, in the shorter term, the solutions are not that great or that vast, because budgets can't shift and personnel can't shift in the short term at radical paces. Thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Modisa, do you want to come in? Or anyone else?
Thanks, Chair. There's a list of us, so let me ask Edgar to come in on the wage bill and the fiscal consolidation, and then I'll take the specific questions on the spending. Edgar?
Okay.
Through you, Chair. Thank you very much indeed. Edgar Sishi from the Budget Office. Chair, some of the questions asked, I must point out, we did provide responses to our presentation last week, but nevertheless, for the purposes of the committee, we can obviously indicate. Let me just firstly begin by assisting Honorable Ryder on his question with respect to reductions and how they are skewed. I would request Honorable members, Honorable Ryder and other members, to please see table 4.4 of the MTBPS, where we make it very clear how the shares across the different spheres have developed post the proposed reductions. It's very clear from the data in chapter 4, as well as in the annexures to the MTBPS that were presented by the minister, that local government is still rising because of the proportional nature of the reductions in respect of that particular approach. Notwithstanding decisions to protect specific social service things. Last year, local government at 8.9% of the share. This year, this rises to 9.5%, and next year it rises to 9.8%. So the opposite is actually true. The opposite is that national share is what actually falls to below actually 48% over the medium term. With respect to wages, we provided a response to this, but I will outline. We dealt with it in the presentation forwarded to members. I would ask members to look at slides 18 and 19 where we provide specific details in respect to the wage bill. I'd also refer members to chapter 3 of the MTBPS, where we'll provide very clear outline of how we dealt with it in respect of the in-year adjustments. In this regard, Chair, let me summarize this by saying here on the platform that we respectfully disagree with the assertion that in February we knew how much was needed for the wage bill. Indeed, it is not unprecedented that a wage agreement is reached after a budget is tabled, and this happened again this year, just like it happened last year. And it happened 3 years prior to that with the 2018 wage agreement that was signed after a budget was tabled. Of course, we were aware and we agreed with honorable members in our presentation in February, March, that we recognize that the risks with respect to the wage bill are on the upside. And we expect that there is a possibility of a wage agreement being reached higher than what was in the budget. However, we did not want to preempt the outcome of the wage negotiations by pretending that we had a specific number when in fact we do not. We also dealt with the issue that Professor Sachs raised in respect to the wage bill back in March, but let me summarize what we said. Professor Sachs used an inflation-linked adjustment in his estimations to claim that he knew what the likely outcome of the wage agreement would be. He was also wrong because even though he was right that the wage agreement did come in above budget, he was wrong that the wage agreement came in above inflation. It did not. Further illustrating the fact that with respect to the actual number, neither he nor us knew what the actual number ultimately would be. I refer again to slide 19 in this regard where we make this point, which I'm repeating here. Second, Honorable Chair, as we have indicated before, the issue with respect to how the wage bill is funded is not a function of saying, well, cuts have been made in order to fund the wage bill. Indeed, we make it very clear in chapter 3 of the MTBPS, and we repeat this point in slide 10 of our presentation that we gave to the joint committees last week, slide 10, that the fiscal framework response to the fiscal gap is a multivariate response. It includes a combination of modest revenue increases, spending reductions, and increases in debt. With respect to the pressures that have showed up in the current year, Honorable Chair, we make it very clear that we are increasing borrowings reluctantly, regrettably, but we are increasing borrowings by 54.7 billion rands this year, in part in order to fund those pressures. So it is, we respectfully disagree with the assertion that we have taken all this money by cutting other things in order to fund the wage bill. As I've said, it's a multivariate approach. And indeed, that approach in the current financial year, in 2023-24, is actually dominated by higher borrowings, 54.7 billion rands in the current year, which is the biggest component. Finally, Chair, as we indicated in slide 19, Professor Sachs is simply inaccurate. He is simply wrong to say in his assessment that the proposal is not unforeseen and unavoidable and that this is unprecedented. Indeed, he himself, when he was head of the budget office, presented a budget for wage bill increase in adjustments budget back in 2015 and 2016. We show in slide 19 and slide 18 that it is not unprecedented. We show that as recently as last year in 2022, government tabled and Parliament approved an in-year adjustment of 14.6 billion rands for a wage agreement which was reached after the February budget had been tabled. Chair, on fiscal consolidation, and I guess I'll close with this. We have indicated quite clearly, both in the current MTBPS as well as in previous budget tablings, why fiscal consolidation is necessary. Let me outline it in a simple way, and this touches on what Ms. Ngaleni was saying earlier. Government only spends the money that it draws from the economy through taxes, and if it chooses to spend more money than it gets from taxes, then it will borrow the gap. And we indicated that this borrowing incurs interest. And that interest, which is what we call debt service costs, is what is now crowding out service delivery spending. So for all intents and purposes, the cuts are almost happening by themselves as a result of the crowding out effect. And this is very important to bear in mind. We show in the MTBPS, and I would ask members to look at figure 3.1, which shows the trend very clearly since 2008-9, that government has been living beyond its means. From 2008-9, government began to live beyond its means. And that trend is the trend that we are trying to reverse by adopting a fiscal strategy to stabilize debt as a percentage of GDP. And the reason we are stabilizing it as a percentage of GDP in 2025-26 rather than in the current year is because in order to do it in the current year would require much more severe spending adjustments than what we're proposing. Now, the fact that government has been living beyond its means since 2008-9 means that the process of rectifying this is something that's going to take time. National Treasury has a very active debt management strategy in answer to an honorable member who asked, how is Treasury managing its debt? I dealt with this question on Friday. We publish a debt management strategy for Parliament's perusal every February in Chapter 7 of the Budget Review. In the MTBPS in Chapter 3, we provide an update on how this borrowing strategy and the debt management and financing is going, and we did it again this November. In respect of this debt management strategy, we've also provided information and feedback to Parliament indicating that we are engaging internationally on our approach to debt management. We seek to improve it, but we do know and we have received feedback, including from the OECD, the IMF, and the World Bank, that South Africa has among one of the most active and sophisticated debt management strategies of developing countries, particularly on the African continent. The reason, honorable members, why our debt situation is what it is not because of the debt management strategy, it's because of what I've already said, which is a tendency of government to live beyond its means, which has been taking place over a decade and a half and has accumulated to a debt level that is projected to reach 5.2 trillion rands in the current financial year, with debt service costs exceeding 350 billion rands and rising over the MTEF if we don't take action. The MTBPS proposes to take this action to reduce these debt imbalances and the impact that they have, both in respect of debt service costs, crowding out service delivery spending, and the intergenerational impact that high debt will have on future generations by forcing our children and grandchildren to pay more in taxes in the future in order to service the debt that we accumulated in the past. The way we propose to address this is through fiscal consolidation. And the fiscal consolidation aims to gradually, over a period of time, combine revenue measures, spending reductions, and a tempering of our borrowing strategy over time in order to stabilize debt. And this is the balance, the careful balance that we are putting before Parliament, and that is part of the MTBPS. And the questions that have been asked here, Honorable Chair, are an illustration of why that balance is necessary. Some people complain about the debt, and they're right to, but then on the other portion, people don't want to do spending reductions. Well, if you don't do spending reductions when you are spending more than you have, how are you going to address the debt? We are proposing a balanced approach that balances revenue measures, spending reductions, and the borrowing strategy in order to do precisely that. And that is what we're proposing in the MTBPS, Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. I think that was very responsible of you, the way you responded. But I'll come back. Can I give Dr. Modise? I see another hand here on the honorable member from KZN. Is that a legacy hand, or you want to speak again because it's now a time for Treasury to answer? Is that a new hand or a legacy hand? Okay, thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So quick ones. On the zero-based budgeting, we have published the framework that we use to do spending reviews, where basically we use some of the components of zero-based budgeting to assess the impact and the nature of the programs that we have, whether they still fit for purpose, and repurposing some of the programs that we have in government. So that work has been done, and the spending reviews, honorable members, if you would like to have a look, those are published on the GTech website. There's so many of the spending reviews. I will share the link with the Secretariat so that you can go through those reports at your leisure time. So that work was done, and the recommendations are being implemented. Further, the President announcing the SONA, with the Minister also announcing in the budget that we're going to review, we're going to do NMOG, the National Reorganization of Government, and that process is also ongoing. Some of the recommendations from the spending reviews will then form part of that process. So we are implementing some of those recommendations. The question on political party funds, basically, I think, let me just explain. So this is additional amount to the baseline that already exists. This amount was allocated for the year 2023-2024, and this was to prepare or to assist political party funds, political parties to prepare for the coming elections. According to the IEC, the allocations are for political parties, but basically the independent representatives will then be allocated funds in 2024 if they have achieved a seat in the upcoming elections. But IEC manages all of these processes, and if more information is required, then we can certainly get the IEC to come and present and explain further how they do the calculations and how they share the political party funding that is allocated from the fiscus. Then on the social grant restructuring, Chairperson, the work is ongoing, but as you can imagine, is a bit complicated because one has to look at a balanced approach on the social wage vis-a-vis what is required in terms of supporting the vulnerable, but also looking at avoiding creating dependency in the system. So there's been a lot of options that Department of Social Development, Presidency, National Treasury, even independent or academia are looking at in terms of trying to see, given the structure of the South African economy, what is the best combination of grants that should exist to protect the vulnerable. So that work, unfortunately, is taking longer than what we anticipated, and that's why if you look at the allocations in the MTBPS, there's an allocation for next year. The reason why it's there without finalizing the work, we realized that introducing a new grant in the system will take long, and you don't want to disrupt the system. So we just continue for the 1 year, but hopefully by next year, we will finalize the funding of the grant, the nature of the grant, and the collective review of the rest of the system. I'm just going to quickly ask my colleague Isaac to deal with the Trisano Fund, and then we can go to Ravesh on the Eskom bill. Thank you, Chair.
Good evening, honorable members. With respect to the Trisano Construction Fund, it relates to the investigations that were done by the Competition Commission on construction companies on allegations of collusions sometime in 2009. So in 2012, there was an agreement. They reached a sort of an agreement for the construction companies to contribute about 1.5 billion to a fund over a 12-year period. This was in addition to the administrative penalty that are imposed in terms of Section 59 of the Competition Act. So the manner in which the funds are flowing for this additional 1.5 billion over the 12-year period is that the funds are paid to the DTIC, that is the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, and then thereafter the funds are paid to the National Revenue Fund. Then during the budget process, we reallocate the funds back to the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. Then during the year, when we do the adjustment budget, if there are any adjustments, we then consider reallocating those funds back. Usually these adjustments emanate from some of the companies that would have seen that their installments maybe have changed due to circumstances. In this case, most of the companies, a number of the companies were affected by COVID-19. So they entered into negotiations with the DTIC on their payment contribution plans that usually by July each year, all the companies are required to have made their contributions for that particular year. So they would engage the DTIC and advise them that our payment plans have changed in this manner. And then we, together with the DTIC, we would then make a proposals to make adjustments in the adjustment appropriation. So in this case, the 15 million that is in the adjustments appropriation bill, it relates to some of the companies that have made their adjustments to the contributions, and we have also then accommodated that through the adjustment budget. Basically, the way it was why it was done like this, it was precedence that was set on the Pioneer Foods, a similar case that was conducted by the Competition Commission, where an agreement was that funds should not flow directly to whoever is implementing the funds that would have been agreed under a consent agreement, because that would create a parallel budget process. So to maintain a single budget process, the funds should flow through the National Revenue Fund, and the responsible department makes a budget bid during the budget process, and funds will be reallocated back to the department and the program that will be implementing that. So this is how really the funds are flowing, and hence we regard this as self-financing, as it is money that is flowing back to the construction, to the trust fund that is responsible for implementing the agreement between government and the construction companies that were found to have breached the Competition Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karasha. It's Ravesh here, Honorable Chair. Just to answer a question on the Eskom debt relief, I think it's also important to point out that the broader Eskom debt relief of 254 billion is actually separate from the municipal debt relief, which Mayor Malejeng has just outlined. But I think just in terms of the question that was posed around the loan versus the equity and the lenders, I think it's important to point out that the lenders in this case would be national government through the National Revenue Fund. So there's no other private lenders that we are actually mentioning. And it's important to also point out that the loan that we're providing to Eskom is much different to the old way, if I can say that, in terms of providing support to entities like the SAAs and the likes of SA Express and the Post Office, where we just provide a pure recapitalization. So this is a different way in terms of where we are providing a loan, and which then attracts interest. So where in the event that Eskom doesn't meet the conditions, then the loan becomes repayable, so they'll be treated as a normal creditor. And in the instance where the loan is not converted, then it actually negatively impacts the entity. So it's in their best interest to ensure that they meet the conditions, so that the loan that is advanced, which is then used to settle debt, will not become repayable, which will then place Eskom in a worse position. Chair, I think we can hand back to you. Thank you.
Dr. Budisa, are you done? I thought you said you will come back to some questions. Are you done?
Yes, I'm done, Chair. I did respond to all our questions in public finance. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. My question on the monitoring of the conditions was not answered by any of you. But also, Ausmadi Jeng, you can check on the chart. There's a statement there or that is written by Honorable Ryder. He's summarizing what you're saying. Because I don't want to entertain that, because ever since started working together as a committee, I never encouraged the committee to be politicized. We had an ample time today to play politics, to utilize the public platform in the chamber to politics. And let's talk facts here. And I think I also got worried when you said if there is a political will. In short, what I get from you is that there's no political will in terms of resolving the issues that we are raising, where we are seeking question and answers from you as management. And according to me, budget cuts should be the last resort. According to me, it should be the last resort, because we have had back to basics. We have had the clean audit campaign, Sienza Manje, all other strategies that we had. What are you saying? Are you saying they have failed? Those who were supposed to implement have failed, or because of the political unwillingness? I'm a bit disturbed about some of the responses, but especially the first one, because if we pass the buck to say there's no political willingness, then what is it that we're doing here?
So
who are the implementers? It's a worrying statement. Do you want to come in?
Yes, Honorable Chairperson, I want to come in. I think the question that was asked was, what are we doing to fix local government? And Honorable Chair, we are always asked this question. What I'm trying to say is, we are putting in place huge programs. I think one thing that local government is not short of, it is support. We spend in the region of around 2 billion. We implement interventions and they fail. So now I never put any political party, so the interpretation of Honorable Ryder is his own interpretation. All I'm saying is, when you look at what is happening in municipalities, you are going to see that there's going to be financial crisis and financial mismanagement, and then service delivery. Those are actually manifestations of the problem. The problem starts at the political level, wherein the council, if the council is not functional, if the council is not taking proper leadership to put in place the right people with the right skills in the administration, Honorable Chair, it doesn't matter how much support you provide. It cannot be absorbed. Just that It doesn't matter. So if you don't have the right people in the administration, which is what is happening in some of these, and I'm not saying in all municipalities, some of these municipalities, so what is that the issue of governance is actually quite critical to ensure that the administration can do what it's supposed to do, to ensure that the support that we provide, which provide the support respects the constitutional responsibilities and mandate of local government, that they are there to actually take responsibility and deliver on behalf of the people. The truth is, a lot is happening. Now, with these days of coalitions, we see our cities, some of them are on their knees. They cannot even go to the market and borrow because of political instability. And that is happening. It's not about party issue, but it is what, for me as a technocrat, I am observing. And I'm saying that problem is not the problem that I am able to solve. What we can do is to put in place measures to support, but the absorption of that support depends on the political leadership in the municipalities, both at the political level and also at an administrative level. And that is what we are struggling with. That is why we are coming here every year and we are asking, what are you doing about it? And the truth is, we don't have capacity to actually go and run all these municipalities. It's not the way the system is actually designed. So that is why they can even hire at a higher rate in terms of the wage bill, because the idea was they need to attract the right people that will be able to do the complex work of actually running the organization in terms of being able to set tariffs, to collect revenue, and all these complex things that they have to do. They have got capacity to be able to do so in terms of the salary level. But this is not happening. And that is why the system collapses. And then it gets manifested with what? Financial crisis and service delivery. That's all I'm saying, Honorable Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Osmadi Jeng, for that clarity. But then still in your clarity, as you're giving your clarity, trying to explain what you really meant, and which is what we have been saying as a committee. That's why I wanted you to see what the Honorable is saying. Honorable Duterte, can you refrain from abusing the chat, please? Can you please stop doing what you're doing? Unless intentionally you want to challenge the quorum of this meeting, please, I beg of you, honorable members, can we stop abusing the chat platform? If we need to gain each other's powers, who is in majority where and whatever, let us not involve these officials. Let's deal with it at our own platform. I'm pleading with you. Can I check, honorable members, if there's a new hand, somebody who wants to speak, who has not spoken? Lubabalo, is there anyone new who wants to speak?
Chairperson, no, the only hand is that of Honorable Ryder.
Honorable Ryder?
Chair, unfortunately, I got disconnected for a short while, and I didn't hear your comments ahead of Miss. I didn't hear all of your comments ahead of Ms. Ntalene's response there. But Chair, I do want to make a very emphatic point. Her response that Treasury is angelic and blameless is part of the problem that we're facing with, Chair. And I mean, I don't want to reopen the meeting and let us sit here for another 5 days, because realistically we need to reimagine local government and the way it's funded, okay? But until Treasury accepts that we need to do this and tells us that local government is self-funding and that they have mechanisms to raise their own funding, and that they've done everything within their power then we're not going to progress at all, Chairperson, because realistically, and I'm pretty sure that it was Ms. Nkaleka who wrote the response to me to a written question from Treasury, where I recently asked what intervention had been made to assist the Mfuleni local municipality with their historical debt with Rand Water and with Eskom. And you didn't have to knock me off my chair because I fell off. The response was, we haven't been asked for help. Okay, so all of that debt that we read about in the newspaper every week from Mfuleni to Eskom and to Rand Water, Treasury has been sitting waiting for someone to come and ask them to give some guidance. So the fact that Treasury comes here and says that they offer all of this assistance to local government is, with respect, Chairperson, a misrepresentation of what is happening. You are welcome to refer to my questions in this regard if you need to clarify that. Chair, but realistically, I think that the lady has made a very clear point, part of which is absolutely correct. The big problem in local government is the political, is a political problem. We all know where the main cause of it is. The fact that we're talking now about coalitions and so on slightly dilutes the discussion. Not really, Chairperson, but the fact is we need to have a proper discussion around local government.
Honorable Ryder, can you please not go there? And you said you haven't heard, after you have heard me very well, I discouraged you not to go there. Please.
As I made plain at the start, I didn't hear
whenever you get time to do that, you'll get your people or your politicians that you can box with, and let us abuse this platform. Honorable members,
it's not abuse with respect, Chair. That's why we have committed.
Honorable Ryder, please behave. Honorable members from the provinces and our guests, this is something unfamiliar in this committee. It doesn't usually happen. And I want to apologize on behalf of the committee as chairperson of the committee. We don't get the officials into our squabbles or our differences. If there are issues, we take the issues head on. I want to take this opportunity, members, to really appreciate for availing yourself and hoping that after these interactions that we are having today, you will go back to the province and further peruse your documents and prepare yourself, as we will be coming to our provinces for mandate seeking. And I hope that those meetings will be committee meetings. You'll be working as teams and do what is expected from all of us as public reps. Tomorrow morning, honorable members who are meeting, what time, Lubabalo? I think we are done with the items.
There's still the matter of minutes, Chairperson.
Oh, we're dealing with minutes. I can't, we cannot defer them. Item number 5, we cannot defer them. You'll forgive me, honorable members. I know you might be tired, but we need to deal with the minutes, because tomorrow's meeting, most of the members will be traveling to constituencies. So it might be challenging. Can you flag the minutes, Estelle? We are dealing with the minutes of the 17th. I see Lubabalo.
We'll start with the 11th of October, Chair.
We are dealing with the minutes of the 11th of October. These minutes were sent to us. I think they were not only sent to me, they were sent to all the members of the committee. Can we move, honorable members, attendees?
Chairperson, I move.
Can we wait a bit, honorable? Let us give those who wants to raise issues to raise the minutes. I know you have read them already. That's last page of the minutes. Honorable Yunus Karim is moving. Can I get a seconder?
Honorable Mamarakhani, second. Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mamarakhani. The sunset. Meeting of the 2nd of November. Let's move. By now, I think we know how to spell each other's names and surnames. We can't make those mistakes. But if there's a typing error, please indicate. Okay, then we are going. We're on page 7 now to 8. We're on page 9. That's the last page. Can I get it over?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I move. Mamarakhani.
I second, Chairperson. Yunus, seconds, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Karim. So you highlighted something. Finish with this minutes. You give the announcement to Lubabalo so that we don't hold members anymore in the meeting. The 7th of November. Let's move. Okay. These are the minutes where we have engagements with the FFC and PBO. Can I get a mover?
I move,
For the
Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Karim. Seconder.
I second, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mamarakhani. I think this was the last set, no?
That's correct, Chairperson.
Can you come with the announcement for tomorrow?
Oh, yes, Chairperson. Tomorrow we're having a joint meeting with the Standing Committee on Appropriation. The committees will be consulting SALGA on the division of revenue, and thereafter the committee will hold public hearings, Chairperson. We received submissions from about 7 stakeholders, but I don't want to go into details. We'll talk about it tomorrow morning, Chair. But all the documents are attached to the email that we send out together with the link.
I just wanted you to talk about it so that members will remind members about time, because all of us will be traveling to our constituencies. It's very important. So members, please connect in time. And thank you once more for availing yourselves. Thank you. Keep well. The meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.